Hello Anglophonians and welcome to a new episode of our wonderful series where we take a look at European comics, but this year we also take a look at European theme parks in the mix of fantasy. Or better to say, one special theme park, the Europa-Park. And we are not yet there with the park itself, because to build the park you have to have some ground where you can build it on. And the family Mack is looking for this ground, and today they are in Breisach am Rhein. Okay, that's one dramatic musical intro, but well. Now, when we last left off the story, we had seen the history of the family Mack and their business, and now they were planning to open a theme park. And for that theme park... Okay, thanks again for the dramatic music. Can I now please go on with the story? Okay, let's try it. So, we are in the early 1970s. The boss of the Mack company is Franz Mack, and he and his son Roland have decided to build an amusement park, so that the rides that the Mack company produces can be exhibited there. But the location of the Mack company, Waldkirch, is not an option as a location for a theme park. So they look around and first find an opportunity in the city of Breisach am Rhein. As you can see here, Breisach is west of Waldkirch and a little south. The distance to the Mack company location is not too big, so that the managing directors can manage both locations. And this means also that the transport route for the individual parts of the rides that are to be built here is not too long. The city is also located directly on the Rhine, and the A5 motorway passes not far away. And there is also something else that the city has: a certain flair. The city is located directly on the border with France. You just have to cross the Rhine and you're in another country. And the fact that the Rhine is so straight here is not a natural phenomenon. Under the supervision of the civil engineer Johann Gottfried Tuller, the river was straightened here to counteract the annual floods. Before the straightening, Breisach was not on the banks of the river Rhine at certain times of the year, but directly in it. Breisach lies on a hill. The first traces of settlement can be traced back to the Celtic period. The name of the city also comes from the Celts. Breisach comes from Brisios Acco, which means estate of Brisios. When the Romans later came to the area, they built a fort and called the hill Mons Brisiacus, the mountain of the Brisios estate. Today, the Breisacher Minster is located on the hill. To get to the top, you have to walk along a steep street that leads through the historic city fortifications. Here you can see the eventful history of Breisach. After the Celts and the Romans, various noble families ruled here: the Zähringer, the Hohenstaufen, the Church, the Habsburgs, the Austrians, the Burgundians, the French, and finally the Badeners. After the end of the monarchy and the painful experiences of the Third Reich and the Second World War, something special happened here. What was this special thing, you're now asking yourself, and above all, what does it have to do with our story here? Then accompany me to a memorial of the darkest hours of German history, where the horrors of war and the atrocities that people can inflict on other people are remembered. And then listen to the wind. If you listen closely, you will hear a melody that promises hope and confidence. Due to the eventful historical experiences and the will to contribute a peaceful coexistence of different peoples and cultures, the people of Breisach were the first in Europe to speak out in favor of a united and free Europe. On July 9th, 1950, the city held a vote on this declaration, which was approved by 95.6% of the vote. Since then, Breisach has called itself City of Europe. And this work of art, called Europe Reaches for the Stars, reminds us of that. And the carillon that we heard playing the European anthem is on top of this little church. In order to get back to the history of Europa-Park, we have to go a little outside the city center. Of course, the park shouldn't be built in the middle of the city. It needed an open area. And we can find that a little south, directly on the banks of the Rhine. There was already a small lake here back then, which was called Lake Europa. Franz and Roland Mack liked the area, and they also liked the idea of a free and united Europe and that Breisach was the city of Europe. Franz Mack had his own painful experiences. He was drafted into the army as a young man in the Third Reich. Well, if you could convey the ideals of peace and freedom with a theme park, why not? This is how the decision was made to call the park Europa-Park. The Lake Europa that we see here should be something like the heart of the park. What a wonderful idea, but why wasn't it realized? To see this, we have to take another look at the entire area from above. And we have to remember that the Rhine was straightened here to prevent flooding. But that didn't mean there were no more floods. If it was a particularly hard winter in the Alps and the snow melt was heavy in the spring, flooding could still occur. The Rhine Shipping Office therefore calculated that the Rhine floodplains, which we see on the right of the Rhine on this map, were an area into which excess water could flow. Nature should remain untouched, and under no circumstances should any buildings be built that would then be underwater. That was the end of the project for a theme park in the city of Europe, Breisach. But the name and the spirit remained, and so Franz and Roland Mack set out to find another location for their theme park. It's a real shame that the project wasn't realized here. The floodplains really look beautiful, but it probably wasn't meant to be. The spirit of the idea was taken along, and Breisach is still worth a visit. So, with the triumphant conclusion of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, let's take a look at a few beautiful pictures of the area. So there you have it. Now you know why the Europa-Park is called the Europa-Park. Yeah. And, well, why Breisach wasn't the place who won it. Well, next time we take a look at another comic, but we will come back to the Europa-Park. Until then, take good care of yourself and see you.